Emily McGuire, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, the folks that are listening, obviously, in the first few seconds of an episode, they're going, why in the world should I continue listening to this episode of the ROI Online Podcast? Emily, you are like a marketing guru in the email marketing world. Tell us a little bit why would you stake your flag in that part of the marketing world?
Sure, that's a great question. I have been, in the tech and e-commerce space for over 10 years. And I started out as a marketing generalist, a digital marketing generalist with social media. And I was already doing digital marketing, and they were the company I was working for at the time. They were like a specialty food store, and they had like a cooking school and restaurants and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, "Oh, you do digital, you can do email, right? Here you go." And and that was that. And I realized I loved email so much more because it was more about, well, it combined the creative piece of copywriting and design and strategy and messaging with the technical aspect of, coding an email and automation and all the back end systems that work together to drive a totally personalized email experience. And I realized I love that. And so I got my next job only doing email for a very large e-commerce company. And I was on a team of like 6 people who were only focused on email marketing. And it was just a fascinating world to take a deep dive into. And in that role, I was able to see the exact power of email. That team, we generated over $20 million in revenue annually. And then I got to work on an abandoned cart campaign and test it and optimize it. And that campaign made $1 million annually. And so I was a direct witness to the power of email. And so I was hooked. And when my husband, I was in North Carolina at the time, and my husband and I moved back to Michigan after we had our son. And I was looking for the perfect job. I only wanted to do email. I didn't want to be a generalist again. And I wasn't finding it. So I created my own. And now
Flourish
here I
and Grit.
am. Yeah, I'm doing the whole thing by myself.
So your company's Flourish and Grit.
Yes. Yeah. Flourish and Grit. I focus on email marketing and automation.
So what's behind the word flourish and grit?
So for me, it's like two ends of the spectrum, right? Like a lot of business owners I meet and a lot of marketing directors I meet, they have a lot of grit, right? They are heads down in what they do, and they're trying to pull together every resource possible to make things happen. And those are the type of people I love to work with. And but at a certain point, you get to a certain point where the grit isn't doing it, right? You just can't do it on your own anymore. And one of my hardest lessons I've learned is to truly flourish, to truly grow, you have to ask for help. So it's pulling those pieces together. Like, you have to be able to do the hard work to get your hands dirty, but at a certain point you have to ask for help, or you're just going to keep spinning in the same old mud,
I love that.
hmm
So I think, first of all, a lot of the marketing directors or the people in charge, they're relating with you. The folks that
hmm
listen to this, they're relating with you because they were just handed something. You know social
yes.
media, right? You've got a
Yeah.
Facebook account, don't you? Here, you're in charge of this.
Yeah, do the Facebook ads. That's the
Yeah.
same thing, right? Yeah.
So when that happened to you, how did you feel?
Well, I love a new challenge. So I was excited, but until you get into it, and then it's overwhelming, right?
Right.
And Google and I became best friends,
Mhm.
and just really gave my keyboard a workout trying to figure things out, and made so many mistakes. And that's a hard one too, right? Is being okay with making mistakes in the beginning.
And
It's hard.
the folks that you're trying to help, they need to be okay with you not knowing everything and making mistakes as well, right?
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like no marketing solution is one size fits all. And I've learned a lot of lessons that applied to very specific industries and audiences, but every business is different and every ideal client for a business is different. So it's a lot of setting a baseline and then experimenting from there.
Yeah. So what an opportunity to get to go to a company that had the resources and had acknowledged the importance of setting up a really good, strong email game. So
Mm-hmm.
getting to work with all those folks, tell us some of the big epiphanies that came from that experience for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, really, having the right resources and tools is everything, right? It's really hard to admit when, because personally, I like to think I can do it all, right? Until you get to a point where you're just like, oh, wait, I can't. It's impossible. It's humanly impossible to do it all on your own. So it's really fascinating to be able to work with a team of people and have the resources at hand. The complication there is the operations piece, right? Marketing operations is its own thing. And so like figuring out how to work with a team of people, multiple stakeholders, including copywriters, designers, developers, learning how to speak their language, I think was the hardest hurdle to come to get over. And then also just being organized to be able to pull all the pieces together and let an entire team know what's going on. That has profoundly benefited my current business, is being able to say, okay, we need all these pieces. I need to be able to tell somebody exactly what I need in a way that they'll get it. So I actually learned copywriting and design and coding just so I could talk to all of the people who would help me. And again, that has helped me tremendously because now I know copywriting, design, and coding. But then it was only to learn how to talk to people very clearly so we could get things done quickly.
That's such struggle. Where did strategy become apparent to you in that organization? Because you have all these people with all these agendas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, coders, they have their agenda and their expertise, and
Exactly.
they see things a certain way, usually
Mm-hmm.
not the same way that a marketer or a content person. How did how did you start to learn how strategy impacted all of that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So strategy itself, it can be really difficult to explain the intricacies of email marketing to people who are only focused on one piece of the puzzle, right? They don't see the entire thing. And so what was really beneficial was having weekly reviews of our data. We would do weekly and monthly reporting, and we would be able to see, like, look at all of our emails and see, okay, did this email achieve our goal? And then back into why it might not have. And that piece, that strategy piece, and being able to read the data and then explain it to other people, I think was again really valuable because everybody's got their opinions, everybody's got their methods, and so when people start questioning your strategy behind really guiding people out of the inbox and to conversion, having the numbers to back that up was really powerful. And then like also being open to suggestions from people who might not be in this data day to day. So that's where A/B testing really came into play. So when somebody would say, hey, I have this idea, I really want to do this, and maybe it's not something you've done before and you're skeptical about, A/B testing it is a surefire way to help people feel like they're contributing, and also be open to new ideas. And then you have, somewhat concrete evidence of, okay, this is why we don't do that, or maybe we should explore this more because it made a difference, kind of thing. Yeah.
So A/B testing is an excellent example of being able to take out the subjective opinions of
Yes.
things, but also it reveals that you have to have an aptitude for technology and taking advantage of things that technology offer us,
Mm-hmm.
but not it be the only thing, because you do have to have a creative side. You have to have a
Mm-hmm.
strategy side, but you need to be able to take advantage of technology. It's very confusing for most people to put all those things together.
Exactly. There's so many components at play that, when you're looking at some sort of digital media, or digital campaign like email, it takes you what, 2 minutes to skim an email,
Mhm.
and you think, oh, that clearly only took 2 minutes to put together, right?
Right.
But the complexity of all the back end systems, all the creative components, the planning, the brainstorming, the editing, it's a lot. And so like being able to pull all those pieces together can get really complicated really quickly.
So true. The people that I believe are the invisible heroes of our American economy are entrepreneurs that have companies with 20 or less employees. That means they
Mm,
have to wear all these different hats, including
yes.
marketing and sales.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's like I was shocked to find out that 98% of the businesses in the US have 20 or less employees. And when we were sitting here talking,
Mm-hmm.
and so the luxury of a company with 100 employees is that they have an army of folks to do
Mm-hmm.
this for them and a budget, literally in-house. And that's who
Mm-hmm.
you're competing against.
Right.
And so do you find that most of the folks that you work with, their email is like an area that they could really be killing it, but it's like the most neglected aspect of really good marketing?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those taken for granted channels because people don't understand. I mean, because everybody uses email every day,
Mhm.
right? I mean, most everybody uses email every day. And so, like, if you're in it daily, it's one of those, again, taken for granted things. Like, it can't be that complicated, right? But when you're starting to deal with, 100 subscribers, 500, 5,000, a million subscribers, it gets really complicated. And you also have to be able to invest the resources into that channel in order to really see it take off. So like if you have one marketing person on your team or none at all, who's trying to manage the website, the social media, if you're doing print campaigns, whatever it is you're doing, they don't have the bandwidth, to not only practically, or tangibly do these things, but invest the time to strategize or learn more about it. So yeah, especially, I mean, and email is the highest ROI marketing channel, for a lot of reasons. So the potential is there, and some people, they don't have the resources to invest, or they're not willing to allocate the resources.
So what are those resources?
So strategy, right? So
Mhm.
usually, some sort of thought behind email, instead of just like, oh, let's just send an email, which, is a great starting point sometimes. Sometimes you just have to get into it and get a little dirty with it. But yeah, it's a strategy, and then people are doing it and just throwing emails out there, and they're like, why isn't this working?
Mhm.
And that's when you either have to invest in an internal person to go learn more about email marketing through, I mean, maybe not a conference right now, but
Right.
some sort of virtual learning or certification, or you look outside the company and get a consultant, to help you with strategy. But yeah, then there's copywriting specifically for email. That's a whole thing. Design specifically for email, the right tool. Email, they call those email service providers. I think your company is probably more familiar with HubSpot,
Mhm.
like you have an email marketing tool like that. Um, and all of the other things that go along with that. It's a lot of manpower and it's tech too.
Yeah, it's there's a problem with this because you have to tee it up in technology, and all of a sudden, all right, so we're designing this email, we're gonna send it out to this
Mm-hmm.
list, okay? But so let's say it's a list of 1,000 people, so we've
Mm-hmm.
got this one-to-many message going out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what's our desire here? That someone's going to start to engage one-to-one. And if you're not prepared to follow through on the one-to-one
Mm-hmm.
conversation, that's another big, big deal.
Exactly. Exactly. So exactly what you just said, being able to well, being able to know what your goal is for an email is
Right?
its own thing. When I talk to new clients, my first question is, so what are your goals for your email program or all of the email campaigns you've been sending out? And usually I get a very long pause. So like being able to identify that and articulate it is its own thing. And I always start there because it helps focus you. Um, and so you know exactly why you're designing the email, what you're trying to design, the copy, and most importantly, the metrics afterwards to determine if it was successful enough for you. So I've already forgotten your question.
Well, it's like that you go from one to many to
Oh,
one to
yes.
one.
Yeah. And then you have to be able to deliver on that, right? So when you are say your goals for your email campaigns are I don't know, booking a call of some kind, like booking an appointment.
Mhm.
If you don't have that back end piece in place to make it easy for somebody to book an appointment, or you're not directing them to the right person to book that appointment, or you don't have the people to book that appointment, then what's the point of even putting that email out? So you have to be able to deliver on what you're promising, in addition to making it super easy for people to accomplish that goal.
Right. You have to have all the foundation and the backside prepared and ready to harvest all this activity that hopefully you're going to generate.
Yes, exactly. And having a tool that helps you look at that too. So some email service providers, they only give you, metrics like open rates or click-through rates or unsubscribes. Like that's all the data they give you. Other other email subscribe. Nope, that's not it. Other
That's easy.
service providers.
That's easy for you to say.
Right, yeah. Like a HubSpot, they'll tell you what pages people are visiting, if they're subscribed to your list, if they visited a page and didn't complete the action, like all that data is super beneficial to have about your email service or email subscribers. So you can go back and look at, okay, where are people falling off? If I'm trying to get them from an email to booking an appointment, did they just click through to the website and then maybe go to a couple other pages and not complete the action? How do I follow up with those people? So yeah, having that data and the tool to allow you to capitalize on that data is just as important.
So there's all these compliance issues that go with this email stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You tee up this beautiful email, you spent all this time on there, you send it out, and the first one that replies is someone like really just rebuking you for being so rude as to send them an email.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there's compliance issues and then there's like user experience issues. So, in the United States, we have the Can Spam Act, which, is an FTC regulation that of many things, and what it particularly pertains to for email marketers is that you don't have to, somebody doesn't have to explicitly give you permission to email them, but you are required by law to include a way for them to opt out. So usually that's an unsubscribe link. And almost every email service provider will require that of you, because again, it's compliance. It's a regulation. In Europe, they have GDPR, which requires explicit permission to market to somebody. So that means in the US, that means any EU citizen, whether or not they are currently in the EU, has to give you explicit permission. So where this comes into play is, so that's the legal piece. When you send people emails that they didn't sign up for, right? So if you went out and found a list of emails, or bought one or scraped them from the internet in some way, just randomly sending somebody an email that's like, hey, buy this thing, can be really off-putting to somebody. Like, who are you? How do I know you? How did you get my information? And so like those sort of cold email campaigns have to be very strategic and focused around building the relationship. Otherwise, people are going to get upset.
Yeah, so I'm struggling with this conversation with somebody goes, why can't I just send it from my Gmail? Why do I need this tool? And it's because you don't have the subscribe option on there.
Right. Well, yes, there's that factor and like the back end piece of that world. So, if you're sending emails, you have a sender reputation, right? So everything obviously is tracked online, including who is sending emails and where they're sending them from and who they're sending them to. So if you don't have the unsubscribe link in your email, as you mentioned, what are people going to do when they get that email and they might be upset that somehow you got their information? Well, they're going to mark you as spam, and that's tracked, right? So the server you're sending emails from is the IP address is going to start getting dings on it, right? And when email clients are looking at your IP address to determine where they're going to serve your email, they're going to send it to the inbox, to the spam folder, or not deliver at all. They're going to look at that sender reputation. If you get too many dings, you can get what they call, blacklisted, and none of your emails will get delivered. So your personal emails, your emails to your clients, to your customers that you're regularly corresponding with daily, they could be rejected. And that is a whole other nightmare to clean up. I've done it for people, and it is, like I said, it's a mess. So I recommend being very careful with that and very strategic about it.
And that's why you want to use one of these email services that you
Exactly. And just being very conscientious of people potentially marking you as spam. It could hurt your ability to send emails in the future.
I get 150, 200 emails a day. If I don't check my email like over the weekend or something, I swear I take 30 minutes just hitting delete on all of these emails. What are some stats, or how do you stand out and actually get read? And when people like open it up and they see all these emails and they just start deleting, what's going on there, and how can you get your email to actually be accepted, opened, and read and responded to?
Yeah. So the first thing people look at in the inbox is the sender name. So if they don't immediately identify who you are, and if you haven't established a reputation with them before as being an email they want to open, then they're going to ignore you. So I say this because some people, one of the strategies I hear people talk about is the sender name should be a personal name because it increases open rates. I've tested that, and yes, open rates will go up, but so do unsubscribe rates. So if they don't immediately identify that name, if they don't have a personal relationship with you already and they open it up and they say, oh, I don't remember this person, or I don't know why I signed up for these emails to begin with, they're going to unsubscribe. So making sure that sender name is super clear is the first thing. You can add some visual interest to that so that it stands out in the inbox. You can put emojis in a sender name or a special character so that it stands out a little bit. Subject lines, you want to make it catchy, right? And you want it to be something really tantalizing. And so one thing I see people do a lot with subject lines that's not super helpful is make it about the brand. Putting the word you in a subject line is going to obviously speak to your audience, but testing around this has shown it can increase open rates. So, and it just reframes it in your mind so that you're speaking to your audience and you are telling them what's in it for them when they open the email. So that's what I usually ask when I'm writing a subject line is, why would somebody want to open this email? What's in it for them? And that will obviously speak to the benefits that you're offering them instead of like, hey, this email has something in it, being specific and talking to your audience like they're real people gets better responses.
So then we get it opened. What's going on next? What's the next hurdle or the audition you have to pass?
Well, so another mistake I see a lot of people make in their emails is they just jam it with a ton of content. And it's fine. I mean, that could be okay depending on your audience, but it's overwhelming. People skim emails, they skim digital content. And so if you're just putting article after article after article that all has the same sort of weight and focus to it, people are just going to glaze over. The same thing that is also the same thing with text, right? If you're just putting a glob of text in an email, people are going to just glaze over, right? Big blocks of paragraphs. So what I recommend is having one primary focus to your email. So having one theme that you are focusing people on and having one primary call to action. So again, it helps people focus on what it is you want them to do. And then you can have maybe some supplemental content underneath it. And I wouldn't do more than 2 or 3 things, right? So if you have, for example, you have a new service you're offering and you want to announce it, having that your primary focus, making sure your call to action is clear and specific about what they need to do next to take advantage of that. And then, maybe having a couple of blocks of, here's our portfolio, here's some testimonials, here's some additional supplemental content you might find interesting. Or products. So again, really helping people focus and understand what's the next action they need to take to become a customer or a repeat customer.
So where does creative fall in this area?
Yeah. So that has a lot to do with layout. So like I mentioned, first of all, the fonts, breaking up your copy. So it's not giant blocks of text. Again, like eyes glaze over and people just sort of skim right through. So breaking up that copy, adding visual variety to that copy, whether it's bulleting lists, bolding certain things, changing font colors to really emphasize certain portions or highlighting those pieces of text, that kind of thing. And then, having some kind of visuals to add a visual interest, like a header image minimum, will really visually capture the attention of people and help them keep scrolling. And then also making sure your call to action is actually visible, that it's not some random hyperlink buried somewhere that people are expected to hunt for. So either a big bold button, or just if your users are primarily, or your audience is primary Outlook users, then having like a big bolded hyperlink text.
So there seems to be kind of this conversation about just an email that looks like a personal email with no
Hmm.
creative, just a
Hmm.
quick message, as opposed to very well developed out creative, with everything. What is your opinion? What are you seeing as far as data?
So I've tested this, and it depends on your business, it depends on your audience, and it depends on your offerings. But what I would say is having a variety, like mixing those kinds of emails up, really helps. Like having that letter from a real person definitely adds personalization and personality to the email and makes it seem like it's coming from an actual human,
Mhm.
instead of, a team of faceless, nameless people. Um, and that can be very effective, that straight letter format. But again, what I see people do is just like big chunky paragraphs it's too much copy. Again, it all blends together, and it's really hard for me to see where I need to focus. So you can do that letter format and still add visual variety to the font. Um, but also, like, having a very well designed, or a pretty email, quote unquote, can be a really effective tool to show, if you have like a high end service, or you have a very visual brand. Um, so what I do is I mix those things up for myself and my clients, depending on the campaign and the campaign goal. Um, I see having a mix it like a couple of templates of that kind are really beneficial.
So what do you, s- I see videos now. There are tools such as Vidyard and others where you can quickly spin up a video version of an email where it's not the text, it's not the creative, but it actually has a personalized video from you.
Hmm.
What is your experience with that?
So I've seen this used. Again, that takes a lot of resources, right? To be able to pause and do a one-to-one, or at least load up the information so that it looks personalized. That's another tactic. So if you already have a good email program foundation under you, it's definitely something worth exploring. Videos are powerful in any digital marketing channel. They allow you to, again, show people, tell a story visually. And especially if you're like an entrepreneur and you're a solopreneur, maybe just starting out, super powerful, right? Because you're really selling yourself, literally, you're selling your time. Um, yeah, videos are really powerful. The only thing about email is that videos will not play in an email. Most of the time you have to click through to see the email or see the video. There are tools that will let you play an video in an email, but those are very expensive. So those are more like for major enterprise brands, or that kind of budgeting is. So yeah, I recommend videos all the time, but you have to have the resources to do that.
It could serve well as a supplemental component of your traditional email that we discussed. That you could
Mhm,
have a video option should they want to consume just the video aspect, or if they
mhm.
wanted to go on and read the rest of the email, then you would have both bases covered.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really great tactic. I also do that, especially in welcome series,
Mhm.
or if you have like an email funnel sequence, um, then having a video in one of those emails is really powerful, because your subscribers are most engaged right out the gate as soon as they subscribe with you. And so like having that like your brand story in video format as one of your first emails in your welcome sequence is really powerful. People love that.
So what does your data show as far as like the number of emails? Let's say you signed up, and so my goal is to get you to schedule a time to talk to me.
Mhm.
How many emails should I have planned over time to expect that you're actually going to take that action? You're not going to do it the first time. A few may, but most
Mhm.
won't.
Right.
What's proper expectations?
So it depends on, how expensive your offering is, right? Some people have very long sales cycles because they're selling these huge programs or offerings or products that cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, or if you're, selling some, in the e-commerce world, people send a ton of emails because that buying cycle is so short. People make those decisions very quickly. Um, so it depends, on how many. Do your ideal clients have additional decision makers they need to talk to, right? How many people are involved in this decision buying process? So what I've seen with email sequences is that, generally the first 2 or 3 have higher engagement, right? People are opening them more, they're clicking them more, and then people start to trickle out. And so those people who are the most engaged in those emails are worth sending extra emails to, right? Then you start segmenting your list based on how warm your subscribers are or your leads are. And then that can take, an additional 3 to 10 touch points, depending on the customer. So usually where I start with baseline is 5 emails, to enough to talk through story brand kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
and to start collecting data on people, on how active they're being. And then from there, I start pinpointing who are the most engaged and start sending follow-up emails to those people specifically.
So do you have to have a certain baseline of contacts to really begin an effective email campaign? Because there are folks that go, I'm just starting. I just have a list of 20 or 30 people.
Mhm,
There's people that have 30,000. Where's
mhm.
like a good area to start to diligently grow that list over time?
I mean, everybody starts from 0, right? Everybody starts at 0. And so the thing is really just being consistently sending emails to people, whether that's, once a month, once a week, whatever that is, so that people start to, expect your emails. So, and then the beautiful thing too is as you're starting to produce emails to a small audience, once you start getting above 100 contacts, you have all this backlog of email campaigns you only sent to the first 20. And so you can recycle those easily as your subscribers keep coming in, right? Um, so for me especially, and especially, very small businesses, it can be very hard to make that email campaign a regular part of your marketing practice. And
Mhm.
I think at that point, when you have a small audience, you get to experiment more, you get to start coming up with your routines and strategies more, and it feels much more low stakes and low pressure for you just to start getting your cadence and your feet under you. Because that's part of it too, is just coming up with your processes, your habits, your routines around putting out digital marketing campaigns in general. But getting used to email is one other channel you have to get used to. Um, and having a small list is the best playground because it is low stakes. So yeah, it's worth just getting a routine in.
So what does it look like working with you? Let's say that you were going to come in and start working with ROI Online, right?
Mhm.
Describe what that engagement looks like, and what do you do?
So this varies from, so what I usually do with people is I look at their life cycle, so their customer life cycle, and we start mapping out each digital touch point based on the analytics you have and where are people falling off in their funnel. And then what campaigns are the highest priority for bringing people back into your funnel and keeping them there. So that's a roadmap. I do a roadmap with every customer. Um, so it's basically an audit of what's going on. And then we come up with, an ideal template for your campaigns, content to start pushing out, and a calendar. Because again, that's another place that's so hard to manage are those content calendars. Um, and so we just start getting those processes in place if they're not already there. And because to me, that's the foundational piece. And that's where getting organized and having your feet under you is where you're really going to start seeing things take off, because then you can focus on the creative pieces and the experimentation and the testing from there.
That's the hard work that takes the longest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, getting that base down, the right template for your business, the right segments, the right opt-ins, and the sequences that follow up with that.
Hmm.
Because it's so hard to go back. I mean, again, when somebody signs up for your list, it's the most engaged they'll ever be. And so you really want to capitalize on those contacts as soon as they get on your list. Start warming them to your brand and your services and your offerings, so they know exactly who you are, instead of expecting them to go hang out on your website and figure it out on their own, right?
Hmm. Let's talk about your brand. You obviously your glasses are unique and a very memorable aspect of your brand. Why the glasses?
Well, it's funny because I had designed my own logo when I started my business, and I was not in love with it. And I had, so it was one of those things. I was like, I need another person to help me, because when you're so in it, it's so hard to see from the outside. And when I hired a logo designer to help me with it, that's immediately where she went. She's like, your glasses are unique and memorable. And everybody says this about you. They remember your glasses. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's go with that then. And so like having that recognition, that brand recognition, this has just been what it's been for me so far, which is funny because I've always enjoyed funky eyewear. And so now it's like, oh, well, that's a part of me and people like it. Weird. And so part of that too is just, having that vision, like being able to, so what I tell people I do is uncover hidden revenue in their email list. And part of that is having a discerning eye.
Mm,
So being able to see that is what I do, and it
I
fits in with the eyewear.
I love that. So in the beginning, you said you have to ask for help. So what did you say exactly? You had to,
You have to get to a point where you're ready to ask for help. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So the trap is if I ask the wrong person for help,
Mm,
it's a setback. That's
mm-hmm,
a common dilemma. How do
mm-hmm.
how do we discern who's good help in this area?
That's a great, great question. So sometimes if you don't know what you're looking for, making the wrong decision helps you find out what you're not looking for. So I've learned that lesson a few times as well. And sometimes that's just as helpful. But what you are looking for are who fits in your industry. Like, do they have industry experience? Because email marketing, the strategy varies widely, depending on and I'm thinking like B2C companies versus B2B. That email marketing strategy is very different. Um, so being clear on, what your industry is, what your goals are for email. So like, is it specific? Like, do you want it to only drive revenue? And what does that look like for you? So you can ask those questions. And do you have a designer in-house? Do you have a copywriter you can use? And what specific tasks do you need help with? Because some people, some email marketers, they only focus on copywriting. Some only focus on execution of emails. Some only focus on design, and some only do strategy. If you need help with all of those things,
And you do.
yeah, exactly. Finding somebody who either can do all those things or has the resources to help plug those things in.
Yeah.
And because what people, and, you know, if you need help with all of those things, budget is obviously another piece to consider. People just starting out are obviously going to charge less because they don't have the experience and it might take them longer to do. People who've been doing it for a long time are going to charge more because they've learned all of these lessons already. So just being aware of that and how having a number in mind of what you're willing to spend to invest in this is going to really help you out.
Emily, what's the one question you never get to answer that you would like to answer about what you do?
Oh, about what I do.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's a really good one. What's the one question? I think so this is not going to be great, but like, what's the biggest mistake you've ever made with email marketing?
Yeah.
Because like the thing is, so I have clients who, you know, I'll come in and train a team member on how to do this thing. Like I might set up everything for them and then train somebody to pass it off onto. And that poor little email newbie gets terrified, right? They get so anxious that they're going to break something or screw it up. And what I always tell them is, well, your first mistake when you send the email at the wrong time or to the wrong audience, you're officially an email marketer. because we've all done it, right? Like, and it sucks and it's so awful and you feel terrible. But hey, I feel like it's a rite of passage every email marketer goes through. Like maybe they have a typo in the subject line or something like that. And I think, yeah, that biggest mistake is a big one.
Welcome to the club, right?
Exactly, right? Like, and I think it's impossible to think somebody can do everything perfectly 100% of the time. We don't. We're human. And
What? You
I know.
confessed? You
I know.
confessed and
I know.
you're human?
I know. I'll go over here now and hang out in my human corner, right? My shame human corner. But yeah, we all do it and nobody's perfect.
Emily, what's if someone's been listening, they want to reach out to you, connect with you, talk to you a little bit, learn maybe how you can support them or help them, what's the best way?
So I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. I like to post a lot on there about my thoughts and feelings about email. And so you can find me on there. Feel free to connect with me. And I also have one of the biggest questions I get from people is, you know, what's a good open rate on emails? So I have a free action guide on how to boost your email open rates. It's at flourishgrit.com/open. And that'll walk you through how to look at your open rates and write a better subject line.
So that's Flourish Grit or Flourish and Grit?
Just flourishgrit.com/open.
/open.
Mm-hmm.
Emily McGuire, you've been an awesome guest on the ROI Online Podcast.
You.
I really appreciate your time and have enjoyed you, and I love your brand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
so much.
having me. I love to talk about email, so I got that hour out of my day to just talk about email.
All right. And that's a wrap.
All right. Thank you.